October 8th, 1871, 9:30 p.m. The sky above northeastern Wisconsin glows orange, then red, then an impossible white. The temperature spikes to over 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds accelerate past 100 miles per hour. The town of Peshtigo, population 1,700, has less than 90 minutes left to exist. By midnight, somewhere between 1,500 and 2,500 people will be dead. It will be the deadliest fire in United States history, and almost no one will ever hear about it. 250 miles to the south, at almost the exact same moment, Mrs. O'Leary's cow is allegedly kicking over a lantern in a Chicago barn. To understand how an entire region could vanish in a single night, you need to go back 4 months. The summer of 1871 in Wisconsin is brutal. From June through September, rainfall across the northern forests measures less than a quarter of normal levels. Rivers that typically flow year-round slow to trickles, then muddy pools, then nothing. Swamps that have existed for centuries dry and crack. The Peshtigo River, the town's main water source, drops to its lowest recorded level. But the drought is only part of the equation. Peshtigo exists because of timber. The forests of northern Wisconsin contain white pine, hemlock, and hardwoods that stretch unbroken for hundreds of miles. The town hosts the largest woodenware factory in the country, operated by Chicago businessman William Ogden. The factory produces pails, tubs, broom handles, shingles, anything that can be cut from a tree and sold downstate or shipped east. The operation is relentless. Loggers clear-cut massive swaths of forest, leaving slash piles of branches, bark, and wood chips scattered across thousands of acres. These piles, under normal conditions, would decompose slowly. In the summer of 1871, they become tinder. By early October, the forest floor is carpeted with dry needles, dead leaves, and timber debris. Humidity hovers near zero. Temperatures remain unseasonably warm. Small fires, set intentionally by railroad crews clearing land, or sparked by locomotive cinders, have been burning in the woods for weeks. Residents have grown accustomed to the constant haze of smoke, the smell of burning in the air, the way ash drifts down like snow. On October 7th, the wind picks up. Weather science in 1871 is primitive. There are no satellite images, no Doppler radar, no weather balloons measuring atmospheric instability. Forecasting consists of looking at the sky and making educated guesses. What meteorologists would later reconstruct is this. A powerful low-pressure system develops over the Great Plains and moves eastward. As it crosses the Great Lakes region, it encounters a stalled high-pressure ridge. The collision creates extreme wind shear and rapidly falling barometric pressure. In modern terms, the atmospheric setup resembles conditions that spawn derechoes, violent straight-line windstorms that can persist for hundreds of miles. But in 1871, residents of Peshtigo only know that the wind, which has been blowing steadily from the southwest for days, suddenly intensifies. By the afternoon of October 8th, gusts are strong enough to blow shingles off roofs. The smoke thickens. Small fires that have been smoldering in the woods begin to spread. Farmers watch nervously as flames creep closer to their properties. Some attempt backfires, controlled burns meant to rob approaching fires of fuel. The technique, under normal circumstances, can work. On October 8th, 1871, it is like trying to stop a tsunami with a bucket. By early evening, residents of Peshtigo can see walls of fire approaching from multiple directions. The fires are not moving through the forest in a typical ground-level spread. They are racing through the canopy. Crown fires leaping from treetop to treetop at speeds approaching 30 miles per hour. And then, around 9 p.m., the individual fires merge. What happens next defies easy description. Survivors will later report that the sound arrived first, a roar like a freight train, or a massive waterfall, audible from miles away. Then the wind, violent and scorching, hot enough to singe hair and blister exposed skin even before the flames are visible. Then light, an unnatural, hellish glow that turns night into day. The fire does not advance in a line. It explodes. A firestorm is not simply a large fire. It is a fire so intense it creates its own weather system. The extreme heat generates powerful updrafts, superheated air rising so rapidly it creates a partial vacuum at ground level. Cooler air rushes in horizontally to fill the void, fanning the flames and accelerating wind speeds. The fire begins to behave like a living predator, hunting oxygen, consuming everything combustible, generating temperatures that exceed those of industrial furnaces. At the Peshtigo River, residents flee toward the water. It is their only hope. The boarding house catches fire, then the factory, then the church. Buildings do not burn sequentially. They ignite almost simultaneously, as if touched by an invisible hand. Lumber stacked in the factory yards explodes into flame. Wooden sidewalks become rivers of fire. Father Peter Pernin, the town's Catholic priest, runs to his church to retrieve the tabernacle containing consecrated items. Inside, the air is already oven hot. He grabs what he can and flees toward the river. Behind him, the church roof collapses in a shower of sparks. The temperature is now well over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit. People caught in the open spontaneously combust. Witnesses describe seeing human figures running while fully engulfed in flames, their screams swallowed by the roar of the inferno. Survivors pulled from the river will have burned so severe the skin sloughs off in sheets. By 9:30 p.m., downtown Peshtigo no longer exists. The Peshtigo River becomes both salvation and graveyard. Hundreds of people plunge into the water as the fire consumes the town. Some wade to the middle, where the current is strongest and the water deepest. Others cling to logs or debris. Many submerge completely, surfacing only to gasp breath before ducking under again as waves of heat roll overhead. Father Pernin describes the scene. The banks of the river as far as the eye could reach were crowded with people standing there, motionless as statues, some with eyes staring, upturned towards heaven, and tongues protruded. The water is frigid, perhaps 50 degrees. Under normal circumstances, hypothermia would set in within minutes. But the air temperature above the river is hundreds of degrees hotter. People trapped in this liminal zone, water cold enough to kill and air hot enough to incinerate, face an impossible choice. Some give up. Exhausted, frozen, they let go and slip beneath the surface. Others lose consciousness from smoke inhalation or hypothermia and drown without realizing it. Parents holding children watch helplessly as their sons and daughters succumb. One survivor, a 13-year-old German immigrant whose name is recorded only as Katie, grabs the horn of a cow that has also fled into the river. She holds on throughout the night, using the animal's bulk as a shield against the heat. She will survive. The cow will not. Another man, disoriented by smoke and terror, carries an unconscious woman through chest-deep water to what he believes is safety. Hours later, when dawn reveals the devastation, he realizes the woman he saved is not his wife. His actual wife died in the fire. The psychological break is immediate and permanent. According to later accounts, he never recovers his sanity. Father Pernin remains in the river for more than 5 hours, periodically ducking underwater when the heat becomes unbearable. At one point, his coat catches fire while he is wearing it. He survives, but the frostbite damage to his legs is so severe he will walk with a cane for the rest of his life. The fire burns with peak intensity for approximately 90 minutes. By 11 p.m., the worst has passed over Peshtigo. By midnight, the firestorm is racing northeast, devouring forest at a rate of more than 2 miles per hour. It is far from finished. 15 miles northeast of Peshtigo lies the settlement of Williamsonville, home to about 50 people. Around 10:30 p.m., a phenomenon forms that defies conventional understanding of wildfire behavior. Witnesses describe a column of flame that appears to rotate, a fire whirl or fire tornado, generated by the extreme temperature differentials within the firestorm. Unlike dust devils or waterspouts, which are relatively weak vortices, this fire whirl achieves the rotational intensity of a legitimate tornado, with winds estimated to exceed 100 miles per hour. It strikes Williamsonville with apocalyptic force. Buildings are not burned, they are obliterated. The fire whirl tears structures apart even as it incinerates them, scattering burning debris across the landscape. Trees are uprooted, twisted, and launched through the air. Survivors describe a sound like the screaming of 1,000 voices. When dawn arrives, Williamsonville has been erased. Of the approximately 50 residents, fewer than 10 survive. The ground itself is scorched black, sterilized by temperatures that may have briefly exceeded 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to vaporize organic matter, melt glass, and turn sand into crude slag. The fire whirl is not an isolated incident. Throughout the night, multiple smaller vortices form and dissipate across the burn zone as the firestorm churns through the forest. The phenomenon is so unusual that many survivors, in the days and weeks that follow, will describe the event as supernatural, divine punishment, the end times, the wrath of God made manifest. Peshtigo is the largest casualty, but not the only one. The firestorm consumes a swath of northeastern Wisconsin, measuring approximately 10 miles wide and 40 miles long. 16 communities, some towns, some settlements too small to appear on maps, are destroyed completely. In Sugarbush, population roughly 300, nearly everyone dies. The town is so thoroughly annihilated that exact casualty figures will never be determined. Decades later, farmers plowing fields in the area will still uncover human bones. In Brussels, survivors flee into a field that has already been harvested and burned in a controlled fire weeks earlier. The lack of fuel saves them. They crouch in the blackened stubble while the firestorm roars overhead. The heat so intense they bury their faces in the ash to breathe. In Menacon, a small lumber camp, workers and their families crowd into a clearing. The fire surrounds them. Those who run die. Those who lie flat on the ground, covering themselves with wet blankets and breathing through damp cloth, survive. But many with burns so severe they will die days later from infection and shock. By dawn on October 9th, the fire had consumed between 1.2 and 1.5 million acres of forest, an area larger than the state of Delaware. Property damage exceeds $5 million, an astronomical sum in 1871. And the death toll, when officials finally piece together the scattered reports, ranges between 1,500 and 2,500 people. It is the deadliest wildfire in United States history, and almost no one knows it happened. In the chaos and horror, one location stands untouched: the National Shrine of Our Lady of Good Help, a small chapel located in the town of Champion, sits at the edge of the fire's path. Surrounding the chapel are 5 acres of land that were consecrated in 1859, when a young Belgian immigrant named Adele Bryce reported seeing visions of the Virgin Mary. As the firestorm approaches Champion on the night of October 8th, residents and refugees crowd onto the chapel grounds. Eyewitness accounts describe walls of flame advancing from multiple directions, surrounding the property. The wind howls, embers rain down, people pray. And then the fire stops. The exact mechanism is debated. Skeptics point to the cleared land around the chapel, the lack of heavy timber, the vagaries of wind patterns. Believers cite divine intervention. What is undisputed is the physical evidence. The chapel and the 5 acres immediately surrounding it remain untouched. Trees just beyond the property line are charred black. Buildings a quarter-mile away are reduced to ash. But the chapel stands, its white paint unstained, its windows intact. In the aftermath, the site becomes a pilgrimage destination. Survivors who sheltered there testify to the miraculous protection. The Catholic Church, normally cautious about supernatural claims, eventually recognizes Our Lady of Good Help as the first approved Marian apparition site in the United States. For the people of northeastern Wisconsin, traumatized, grieving, searching for meaning, the survival of the chapel offers the only consolation in an otherwise unrelenting tragedy. Here is what people across America know about the night of October 8, 1871. A fire started in Chicago when Mrs. O'Leary's cow kicked over a lantern. The blaze consumed 4 square miles of the city, destroyed 17,000 buildings, and killed approximately 300 people. It was a national catastrophe. Newspapers devoted front-page coverage for weeks. Relief efforts mobilized across the country. The story became legend. Here is what they do not know. The same night, 250 miles north, a firestorm killed 5 to 8 times as many people, consumed an area 400 times larger, and destroyed over a dozen communities so completely that some simply ceased to exist. Why the disparity? Chicago was a major city, America's 5th largest at the time. It had newspapers, telegraph lines, political connections, and wealth. When Chicago burned, the nation noticed. Peshtigo was a lumber town in rural Wisconsin. Its primary communication with the outside world was a single telegraph line, which burned in the first minutes of the fire. News traveled slowly, arriving in fragments. By the time Milwaukee and Madison newspapers pieced together the scope of the disaster, the Chicago story had already dominated the national conversation. There was also a practical matter. Chicago had survivors, infrastructure, and resources to rebuild. Peshtigo had bodies and ash. Relief efforts focused where they could make the most visible impact. The result was historical erasure. The Peshtigo Fire received brief mention in some newspapers, usually as a footnote to the Chicago coverage. No major investigations were conducted. No government inquiries examined how such a catastrophe could occur. The story faded within weeks. If there is a silver lining to tragedy, it should be reform, safety measures, policy changes, lessons learned to prevent future catastrophe. The Peshtigo Fire produces none of this. Logging in northern Wisconsin not only continues, but intensifies. The massive timber companies, largely unaffected by the fire, see opportunity in the cleared land. Within months, crews are back in the forest, cutting, slashing, leaving behind the same tinder-dry debris that fueled the 1871 disaster. There are no new fire prevention laws, no restrictions on slash burning, no mandated fire breaks or emergency planning. The state government, focused on rebuilding Chicago and managing the political fallout of 2 simultaneous disasters, largely ignores the burned-over district. The people of Peshtigo receive modest relief, some money, supplies, temporary housing. But the town never truly recovers. The factory does not rebuild. Many survivors leave, unable to live in a place where the smell of smoke triggers memories of screaming and death. The population in 1880 is half what it was in 1870, and the fires continue. In 1894, the town of Hinckley, Minnesota, just across the border, is destroyed by another firestorm that kills over 400 people. In 1918, the Cloquet Fire in Minnesota kills 453 and burns 250,000 acres. Throughout the late 1800s and the early 1900s, major wildfires regularly ravage the Great Lakes timber region. The pattern is depressingly consistent: drought, logging debris, wind, catastrophe. And yet, the logging continues. The fires continue. The deaths continue. It is not until the 1930s, more than 60 years after Peshtigo, that federal and state governments begin implementing comprehensive fire prevention policies, establishing the U.S. Forest Service fire suppression doctrine, and restricting the slash-burning practices that created the conditions for firestorm disasters. By then, Peshtigo is barely a memory. Today, The Peshtigo Fire Museum occupies a small building in downtown Peshtigo. The exhibits are modest: photographs, artifacts, testimonies. A mass grave in the town cemetery holds the remains of approximately 350 victims, many unidentified. A historical marker notes the event. Most Americans have never heard of it. The Great Chicago Fire, meanwhile, is taught in schools, commemorated in museums, and woven into the cultural narrative of American resilience and rebuilding. The disaster that killed 5 times as many people on the same night remains a footnote, mentioned primarily in disaster history books and obscure Wikipedia articles. There is something profoundly unsettling about this historical amnesia. The Peshtigo Fire was not a minor event or a localized tragedy. It was the deadliest wildfire in the nation's history, a catastrophe of almost incomprehensible scale. And yet, it has been so thoroughly overshadowed that it might as well have never happened. Perhaps that is the true horror of Peshtigo, not just the fire itself, but the silence that followed. A disaster of this magnitude should echo through history, should spark reform, should be seared into collective memory. Instead, it vanished, erased by timing and geography and the cruel mathematics of newsworthiness. The people who died in those flames, farmers, loggers, children, immigrants building new lives in a new country, deserved better. They deserved to be remembered. They deserved for their deaths to mean something, to change something, to prevent the next catastrophe. They got neither memory nor meaning, just silence and smoke and the wind moving through empty forests where towns used to stand.